Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Mumbai, this is Wisdom of the Sages, our daily yoga podcast. I'm your host, Raghunath, and I'm there about, 3 hours away with Kaustubha, who's at the Govardhan Echo Village. I'm here because it's my birthday. And if you can't see this in the Apple podcast, I am wearing the hotel robe. I'm dressed. I'm just wearing a robe because it's cold. If you're new to the show, this is where we study sacred literature of the yoga system because we love it. We love it, and therefore we want to learn it. And when you learn it, you want to live it. And when you live it, you want to give it. And that's just part of me and Kaustubha, my co-host's inspiration. And we've been doing this thing since we were in our early 20s. We lived in ashrams, and we traveled all over India, slept on floors, saw the moon, went to holy places, visited temples, bathing in sacred rivers together. And then years later, we both became yoga teachers. And now we sort of do our yoga trainings all over the world, especially in India. And we have a big group right now in India with us. And we do back home at Super Soul Farm. And we do other people's teacher trainings too. We go in there and give talks about yoga philosophy. And most of all, not philosophy just so we can just sort of like, I've been studying philosophy and I've got a PhD in philosophy. Philosophy has to have practical application. What good is philosophy if there's no practical application? What if the world was nothing? What if this was a dream and it was all like we're living in a dream? What if there's so much different types of philosophy and it's just like, what if? What good is that? What good is philosophy? So I can go to a party and whip it out? Yeah, well, Sartre thought this and thought this and blah, blah, blah. Just to impress people with how much philosophy you know? Or more bothersome yet, just to teach philosophy? Prabhupada used to say this quote. He said, philosophy without religion is just speculating. You're just guessing. I think this. Actually, I've been thinking about this. I've changed my mind. Now I think this. So philosophy without like spiritual path is just speculating. Some clever guy speculating and trying to create a movement around it. Then he said spirituality without philosophy, that's just fanaticism. Write that one down, Lindsay. Lindsay Scott is here. She's our scribe. How are you? Lindsay was out sick yesterday. Dee did a good job. And I'm here with our executive producer, Mara.
Hi.
Hi. She doesn't talk much. Every now and then she goes, hi, when she laughs.
She's knitting.
She's knitting. Is she knitting? I'm taking the robe off. I'm hot now. I was complaining today, if you don't mind.
All right. Your birthday.
I don't like, it's my birthday. Don't you feel like completely entitled to do whatever you want? I'm going to break all 6 pillars of bhakti on my birthday. No, it's just frustrating. Hotels. Why can't you open the damn window in hotels? It drives me insane. Well, it's very hot out, sir. We don't want to open the window. We have air conditioning. I don't want your climate control. You can't control the climate control. Ever notice that? It's uncontrollable. It's too hot, so I turned on the air conditioner before I went to bed, woke up freezing. You can't control the climate control. Just let us open the window and deal with it. It's like I have to bring a whole separate set of clothes for the hotel. I'd rather just sleep outside and open the windows at night. It's very cool. That will keep the whole room cool throughout the day. Shut the shades when the sun's on the window. I can deal with hot weather. Or maybe they think I'm going to jump out the window. And that's why they seal us in this little golden cage. What do you think, Kaustubha? Am I being just dramatic here?
I appreciate your point. I think that these artificial atmospheres are unpleasant and unhealthy. But Raghu, try to tolerate these things.
You know what? Without tolerance, It is like marrying misery.
Okay.
Think about that.
That's true.
Imagine you pull up to the altar and you pull the veil back of the bride. And it's just like misery. Marrying misery, that's called intolerance.
Okay.
To the degree that I'm intolerant, I'm married to misery.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
And tolerance is a key to meditation. Without tolerance, you don't stand a chance.
It's one of the biggest, I mean, think about it. In the biggest picture of my transformation of our yoga practice, big deal if you can or cannot do lotus. Do you think you're not going to return to the spiritual realm if you can't do lotus? Well, I'm sorry, sir.
Let's see your lotus.
At the pearly gates, I can do lotus, by the way. At the pearly gates, it's going to be like, can you do lotus, sir? I cannot. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take birth again. I got news for you. Big deal if you can't do lotus. Big deal if you have tight hips. Big deal if you can't drop back into your wheel. Big deal. I can't get my feet to my head. I'm disqualified for God. It's silly. We've made this thing. We've taken this condiment of a physical practice and made it the whole meal of our big spiritual transformation. And it's just not. And that's the beautiful thing about studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, books like this. They just shine light on what we're supposed to be looking for in our spiritual practice. So I could do these yoga asanas very beautifully, but if I'm narcissistic, if I'm deep steeped in resentment,
Intolerant.
if I'm intolerant, unforgiving, what good is all those asanas? But if I'm tolerant, wouldn't my life be more successful immediately? Immediately. Even in the material world, you got to be tolerant. Can I share with you something about Gauranga? I didn't want to mention any names, but
But you just did.
but I just did. Gauranga
I'm not going to go edit that out. So
it's okay. It's Gauranga from the Eco Village.
I think I know what you're going to say. And
Like Raghunath Swami's like right hand man.
Yeah, he's such an impressive person.
Such an impressive person. He's been a monk for many, 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 many years. And me and my wife were in the car with him once. My wife is so impressed with the way he lives, his tolerance and his disposition, his kindness. And he's a genius.
He's not a dented can.
He's one of these non-dented cans.
He's brilliant.
He's like brilliant.
He's always in the same tolerant mood.
Never performed any sinful activity. It's
accomplishing incredible things left and right.
Incredible feats left and right.
Not proud of it at all.
No, completely humble. Matter of fact, he told me when Radha Swami told him to move from Bombay. The guy's like an IIT graduate. Radha Swami was telling me in the car yesterday, as soon as you graduate from IIT, you're guaranteed a $1 million job, multi-million-dollar job.
Yeah. If you don't get accepted at IIT, maybe you go to MIT or Cornell or Harvard.
Yeah. Matter of fact, just by being accepted, they say you can get accepted to Harvard.
Yeah.
So it's the most competitive school to get into in India, but its reputation is around the world. So what I said. Oh, so anyway, Raghunath Swami told him to go leave Bombay, go to this big tract of land because we're going to build an eco village. And he was like, he told me, he thought in my head, what in the world is he talking about? An eco village? Why? No one's going to come to an eco village. No, Indians couldn't care less about an eco village. Why would they? And he said, I didn't get it. I don't know why he chose the place he chose. I didn't understand. It made no rhyme or reason, but I just believed in him. And so I did it. And now he says, now it's all making sense. But anyway.
That's called surrender, not like what you do in your back bend or, no, I'm giving my life to
You know what's interesting? When people in yoga, what they do is they take these high principles like surrender to the divine. And this will be like, then they use it in poses like, just surrender to crow. I was like, well, that's not what they mean. You know, it drives me crazy when I'm taking the class. Just surrender. Surrender to your forward bend and breathe. Or if they'll say, ahimsa, don't be violent on your body. If you can't touch your toes, just go to your shins. But just take some part of yoga that actually has a deep meaning, like stop killing everything, ahimsa. It'll say, touch your shins. They turn it into touching your shins. Come on.
Now you're going to tell us about Gauranga Prabhu.
Yeah. So this is the important part about Gauranga was my wife was so impressed with how he was living. She just said, how do you do it? How do you do this? Are you born like this?
How did you become who you are?
How do you become who you are? Are you born like this? Can we develop these good qualities? And he said, well, I chant all of my japa by 6 a.m.
Okay. That
every
means
day.
2 hours of meditation before 6 a.m.
2 hours of meditation at least before 6 a.m. every day. That's my first commitment. My second commitment is I never complain about anything.
Now that's something right there.
I never complain about anything. And I argued with him. I complained about what he said. I was like, what do you mean? You run this whole project. There's very reasonable things to complain about. He said, well, if someone's not doing a task, I can remove them from that task. But I take full responsibility for anything that's going wrong. And if
hey, well, you know what you can call that?
I said, well, what if it's a reversal in life where it's not your fault? You get a chronic sickness or something like that. He said, then I accept it as a divine hand.
Wow. You call that radical? Was it accountability?
Radical responsibility.
Responsibility.
That's what bhakti is. It's radical responsibility. Hashtag that one, please, Lindsay Scott.
Hashtag radical responsibility.
It is. It is. Because in bhakti, you have to be fully responsible for everything. You can't blame. Once you're blaming, you're off track. Once you're intolerant, you're off track. Once you're critical, you're off track. So you should just know. It's just like you have those cars and my wife's got the car and you go, you veer because a text message is coming and you veer to the left and it'll just go, it'll just give you that little, shake of the steering wheel or bing, ding, a little beep. And so the new cars have this like motion detector. You're going to back up, you're going to look in your rear view, and you're going to hit a fire hydrant, but you can't see it. Your car will just shake. So we need to have those little warning signs when I am off my spiritual path. And one of them is if I'm resentful, if I'm angry, if I start blaming people for things.
We'll never be able to go within.
If I'm complaining. Imagine if you stop complaining alone, it is like a magic trick.
That's a huge yoga practice right there. I'm not
better than a lotus, people.
No.
Better, much better than a lotus.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's do an experiment. Except for climate control, you're not allowed to control. You're not allowed to complain about anything. What do you say?
Can we do it for the show? Just for the show? Let's try.
Let's see if I can make it for 45 more minutes without complaining.
Now, Raghu, before we get into Bhagavatam, I just want to make sure we don't go too far because we had a wonderful question from one of our...
anything to do with my birthday?
I could try to make it. I don't know. Let's see. But Laura Baptiste, one of our Zoomers, one of our dear friends.
I have to butt in first.
Okay.
In case you were wondering if there's enjoyment in the material world, there's none.
Is that it?
Yeah. Well, I would just want to tell you why.
All right.
Because I pathetically tried to enjoy this morning because we were staying in these nice hotels in India. They give you like an incredible breakfast of whatever you could imagine they have there. You want fresh squeezed juices, you want smoothies, you want whatever you have, they have it. And I attempted to eat it.
What's your birthday, right?
It's my birthday. I haven't eaten breakfast pretty much this entire month, except the other day when I got angry because I told you I rarely eat for hunger. It's every other emotion I eat for. But anyway, I tried to enjoy, and immediately I'm like, I'm not enjoying. You can't enjoy. And even my 5-year-old son, Tarun, was just like,
what do you mean? Why wasn't it enjoyable?
It's too much. How much? There's a limit. There's a capacity. There's a low ceiling to how much food can I actually eat?
And then you felt bad that you couldn't eat it all.
Well, first of all, there's like South Indian. You want South Indian? Try some South Indian. I was like, I love South Indian. I'm going to go to South Indian. What about fresh fruit? You love fresh fruit, right? Yeah. I'm like, they had figs and they had, strawberries freshly cut. I love those. Do you want some Shrikhan? Shrikhan's like a thing. Yeah, I love Shrikhan. How about a waffle? Whatever it is. They're just putting all this stuff. How about fresh German bread toasted with, and it's sort of like it's like, it all sounds good. And interestingly enough, when you have all different things that you wash it down with a thing of fresh squeezed watermelon juice, and you can't eat all these different types of food without feeling like nauseous.
All right.
And the interesting thing, enough, we do this with our spiritual life. The smorgasbord of spiritual life. Well, I don't want to take serious about any path. I'm just going to take a little bit of Buddhism. I'm going to take a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of Hindu. I like Hindu. I like the Hindu, right? And we sort of merge and make our
American, a little Native American, maybe.
Little Native American, like to mix that in. I got what's it called? The dream wheel above my bed.
Dreamcatcher.
Dreamcatcher, got that going above.
Little Christian theology.
Yeah. A little Christian, little Thomas Aquinas.
Course in Miracles. Mix it all up.
We're all like, oh, we've got all these books. The problem is they all have some valuable truths in them, but if they're keeping you from following a distinct path, it's like overeating at the salad bar. It's like, I want the coffee and I want a smoothie and I want a chai and I want a fresh squeezed juice. And eventually I just feel like crap.
You got to focus on one.
You got to focus on one. So there's no enjoyment in the material world. That was my first lesson I got. I've heard it thousands of times, yet no, today is going to be different. Today I'll be able to enjoy. Wrong. So yeah, didn't enjoy.
And then regarding spiritual paths.
Regarding spiritual paths, we can't smorgasbord that one either.
You know what the analogy for that one they say is?
What?
They say, like, if you want to dig a well, you can't dig a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit over there. If you want to hit that water, you got to stay in one spot and you got to keep drilling down right on that spot.
Don't go wide, go deep.
There you go.
Hashtag that one, Lindsay Scott.
Okay, now, Raghu, we got to make sure we cut to this question because...
everyone's writing stuff today, though.
All right. Raghu, I need you to focus on this question.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
It's a good question, too. And this is from Lauren Baptiste, our friend.
She's a regular. She's a steady regular. Where did we find Lauren Baptiste?
I know Lauren from the Bhakti Center.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I met her at the Bhakti Center that day.
So she says, how can you two-way communicate with Krishna? We do so much to call him by reading and by chanting japa, but I personally find it challenging to dialogue/hear Krishna's response. I suppose the Maha Mantra does that, but it feels one way. Does that make sense? Do you hear Krishna in your heart? How can one turn the volume up? I like that question.
It's a good question.
Let's hear your answer, birthday boy.
Krishna speaks to me at every moment. He doesn't to you guys? Or maybe I'm just confusing it with a ghost in my head. No, that's a good question. But I find that Krishna does speak to me by just through revelation or through realizations or through like, wow, I didn't think of it like that. Through sacred literature, through
other devotees,
other people
yogis.
practicing bhakti, through lectures that I hear. I was like, yes, I was actually looking for that answer. So Krishna doesn't outright come out and like sit down with you. Although I have heard that famous story about someone was interviewing Srila Prabhupada, and they said, Prabhupada, do you actually see Krishna? And
I think it was how do you write your books? Like, I think it was about how do you write your books? Like, anyway, go ahead.
I'll tell my version of the story. It might be wrong.
Sorry.
Because I like hearsay. And, but someone was saying, do you actually see Krishna? And he said, yes, I see him face to face. It was like a reporter. And the reporter said, a young devotee interrupted. What Prabhupada means to say is that he sees Krishna everywhere. God is everywhere. And Prabhupada corrected the devotee and say, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
I say I see Krishna face to face at every moment. Yeah. So I think to the degree that we start to uncover our tamas and are connected to spirit, Krishna starts to manifest in very, very real ways. Truthfully, I can say that is true in my own life. I don't think I see Krishna dancing with me face to face on a regular basis, but I feel like I have much more vision and awareness of Krishna in all my life. I see him not just, at one point you see God, and people say this all the time, thank God. I'd like to thank God for this, award. But when you start to see God in the reversals of your life, in the impediments in your life, in the loss and the pain in your life. That's a sign of that you're seeing things more. So I will say I don't think I'm a great soul, a liberated soul, a bodhisattva, but I do feel like I'm much more aware of Krishna reciprocating with me, and it's not as reciprocated in like a Brooklyn accent or Krishna speaking in Hindi to me. It is, and nodding his head. It is just in the way I live and seeing Krishna in the different things and choices and opportunities or pain sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's.
What do you think, Kaustubha?
I think that's a nice answer. In other words, you do feel God speaking to you. Maybe not in the at this point in your life, face to face like that, but you hear the voice in a sense.
Sure.
I was thinking two things. One was this statement by the great Bhakti-yogi, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, who said, "Don't try to see God, but try to act in such a way that God will see you." Right. In other words,
that's a great one, huh?
It's a great.
Try to see God. I'm gonna. You know what?
It's a long hashtag, but
it's not a hashtag, but it could be a T-shirt.
Okay. Don't try to see God. This is the advice to the practicing bhakti yogi.
Lindsay is so on that.
Oh man, look at her.
She got that put on the board right away.
Yeah.
Don't try to see God, but try to act in a way that God will see you.
So it's advice in the practice, like it's going to require patience. But as you behave as a yogi, as you behave as a bhakti yogi, as you cultivate that devotional consciousness, then the time will come when you will be that two-way communication will open up. That was my first thought.
Good thought.
My second thought was, in my own life, I found that for many years I practiced bhakti with even chanting japa, even things like that. I wasn't really opening up the door to that two-way communication. I wasn't communicating to God in my heart like a person. And more lately, I try to do that. I try to speak with God. I try to thank God for, just speak to God. Express my gratitude. Express my feelings on the situations that I'm in life, and ask for the ability that He may illuminate my consciousness, help me see things in the way that He wishes that I see them. And so many conversations are there. And again, that's the value of reading Bhagavatam, is because we get to hear people speaking with God and God responding to them.
There are official prayers.
Yeah.
The prayers of Brahma offering to Krishna, the prayers of Draupadi or Kunti. It goes on. The Bhagavatam has how many prayers? You know, this is a good piece of trivia, but there's actually there's a number of set prayers that you can, meaning they're verses after verses after verses. But anyway, you can learn, and because sometimes, let's face it, sometimes a lot of you go to a temple and you're standing in front of the altar, you're like, what the hell do I even say here?
Right.
God, I love you. Please love me back. I mean, it's like we don't even know what to say oftentimes. We're just like, please, something, awkward moments standing in front of God. But the idea is that they're official prayers that you can memorize, and they're usually very poetic, and they're very philosophically right on what to say, of a mood of a person practicing bhakti. But there's also prayers you can speak from your heart. Prayers can also be just spoken. Some of the best I like to learn verses. I think it's fun. But that being said, I love to go for walks in the forest and just speak. If not, I've even had times where I've actually yelled.
My name's Raghunath.
Because Krishna is a naughty boy, and sometimes you have to yell.
My name is Raghunath. I like to walk in the forest. Sometimes I yell there. I enjoy walks on the beach. I yell there too.
Well, the famous story, when we found our Super Soul farm, we were in a very precarious situation. We found this incredible property that I couldn't afford. And I had no means of and I had no money for a down. Not only could I not afford it, I couldn't afford a down payment for it. And so I lived by this forest, and I used to walk into the forest. And during my japa, I used to yell at Krishna because it became so obvious to me. The universe had just put me in this place where now is the time It's just like if you see a piece of fruit, now's the time to eat that fruit. The banana's green. It's still not ready. Now eat the banana.
Time is ripe.
Time is right. I said, Krishna, it seems like you prepared my life so much to do this. So if you want me to do it, I'll do it. If you don't want me to do it, that's fine also. I have nothing. I'm not going to take this on. If you want me to move forward, I'll move forward. But you are the husband of the goddess of fortune. Lakshmi.
You can make this happen.
If you want to make this happen, it's nothing for you. And if you do it, I'm here to serve you. And if you don't want it to happen, I completely understand. But every little piece of my tiny little pea brain seems to think that this is what you want.
And then he said,
it wasn't like sweet prayers. It was practically speaking, yelling. And sometimes I find that when I yell, it holds my mind. A lot of people were saying this. We did the Dandavat Prikram the other day around Govardhan Hill. And everyone was saying it's something about going up and down with our bodies and full prostrated obeisances. If you're listening on Apple iTunes or something, you can't see them. I'm going up and down with my arms and my body. Because you bow down, you get up, you bow down, you get up, you bow down. You do that for whatever, an hour, 2 hours. If you're doing it around the actual Govardhan Hill, you're doing it for like 7 days. But there's something about that full contact of the body. It keeps the mind incredibly focused on some strong spiritual intention.
okay, so God understood that you were yelling to keep your intention focused.
Well, I don't know what he thought.
Okay.
If you're asking me what God thought, I don't know.
Did he say
I know I
anything about
appear
it?
quite all-knowing.
Did he say anything? Why are you yelling at me?
Why are you
I'm
yelling?
happy to hear your prayer.
He said, why are you yelling all the time? You need a Vipassana retreat, Raghunath.
I asked that question when we're doing this podcast sitting next to each other because it's coming right in this ear. And I'm like,
You know what I realized the other day? I was like, what is in Kaustubha's ear? She's got the ear that I'm near. Has got a plug
I know,
in
I
it.
put a plug in there.
Isn't that sad?
Okay, Robert, we got to get to the Bhagavatam today. We're halfway in already.
Sorry.
No, I'm not blaming you. It's been wonderful what you've been sharing here on your birthday. And it is your birthday, so you can do whatever you want, but it's just a suggestion.
Okay. We're in a great place in the Bhagavatam, everybody.
You are.
Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 27. Before we start to read this sacred literature, which the author itself says, read this every day. The author himself scribed this sacred conversation, which is an eternal conversation. Matter of fact, us talking about this stuff right now, this is a continuation of the same conversation. The Bhagavatam is eternal. It didn't actually start at a particular date. It was first spoken by Brahma in 4 verses, right? They call it the Chatur Shloki. The 4 Slokis. Write that down. Chatur, like Chaturanga. Sloki, like slokas. Chatur Shloki. So the conversation is eternal. Us asking questions, Lauren Baptiste, she's right out of the pages of the Bhagavatam now.
She's keeping the Bhagavatam going with that.
In future histories of the Bhagavatam, thousands of years from now, there might be a picture of Lauren Baptiste in it, asking a question.
And you right there in your bathrobe.
By the way, I haven't even taken a bath. I just wear the robe.
Okay.
All right.
You want to chant the mantras, Raghu?
Yes, you chant the mantras today, please.
Ready?
Yep.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vasudeva, the author. Nasta Praesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam.
Some of you haven't been regular, and I've been noting that.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Then you're not going to get the same result. And by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs like the Bhagavatam, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. All right. Shall we begin?
Yes, I'm writing this. The 4 original verses spoken by Lord Brahma, the Chaturshloki. I wish all the people listening on Apple Podcasts, etc., Stitcher, could see our little chat board because it's quite interesting. By the way, if you want to join our, what is this? Who are you guys? Zoom group, our daily Zoom group where you see each other's faces. It's quite fun. You just have to email Mara, our executive producer, at
Wisdom of the Sages.
Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. And she will set you up somehow. I really wanted to show this first. Check this out. I got this for a birthday present from Dito Simos and family. You know her from. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. I designed it, by the way. So
Did
it's part of a gift from me to you. Too.
Oh, you knew that too? You knew about that?
Yeah.
You guys.
She wrote to me, said, hey, you know, can you help
You're
out
sweet.
with this?
You're
I
all
said,
sweet.
Sure. Anything for Raghu.
You're all sweet. Thank you. Okay, listen to this verse here. This is text 27, chapter 2, Canto 1. Those who are in the most, we did this whole thing with the gunas yesterday. So now, and the last thing we read was those who worship these real scary versions of the demigods. There are people out there that worship these scary, Kala Bhairava. I asked someone to look up that yoga pose. It's a scary yoga pose. But there's very, very ferocious, ferocious form of Shiva. And there's also ferocious forms of the goddess. And so there's these ferocious acts. They actually attain, what do they get with that? I can't remember what it said yesterday. They get like the lower planets, or let's see.
What, the previous verse?
Yeah, the previous verse, it said those people that worship
Those who are serious about liberation are
Certainly non-envious.
it's in the purport.
Oh, in the purport, I see. Okay.
Yeah. He said these, the demigods, these are worshipped mostly by those in the lowest categories of darkness or ignorance. Other demigods like Brahma and Shiva and Surya and Ganesh and many similar deities are worshipped by men in the mode of passion, right? You'll always see in a market, some guy will have a Ganesh statue above his door. Why?
Yeah.
Because Ganesh will give you some prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
In Bhakti, it's not like we are denying the powers of these higher beings. We just question our motive. Why am I worshiping Ganesh? What do I want to get out of Ganesh? And sometimes we even do worship Ganesh before we do a puja. We worship Ganesh before we do some type of ritual. Ganesh is worshipped or invoked. But mainly with people like Ganesh, we see him in relationship to our source. It's called going right to the top. You know what I mean? If I have access to the CEO, why should I go to higher level management to get something?
Lower
right,
level
right?
management. Why
What's
should
that?
you go to lower level management?
Lower level management to get what I need. And so in Bhakti, we're going right to Lord Vishnu. And in demigod worship, which is very prevalent in India, but probably all around the world, is you approach a higher being for some stuff. Especially these ones, like the next phase is these people in the mode of Rajas. They're worshiping Surya, Ganesh, Shiva for some material benefit.
Right.
Whereas people worship Vishnu, you can even worship Vishnu for material benefit, but you know what'll happen is you'll start to lose your material desires. That's sort of even if you worship him for material things, you'll either get the thing by Lord Vishnu only to realize the thing is really worthless.
That's
Or
illustrated in
you'll
the Bhagavatam.
never get it only to realize, you know what, it wouldn't have satisfied me anyway.
Mm.
So that's what happens in the worship of Vishnu. That's why he's called Hari, Hari. Different than Hare, by the way. Hari, when we say Hari Bol, it means a thief or one who takes away. And one of the things he takes away is our material desires. And we say, takes them away. How? By giving you what you want, only to realize, come on. You've all been there. You wanted something, you got it, and it's sort of like, why do I want this so bad? Or you want something and you get it, or you want something and you never get it, and you'll be like, you know what? It wouldn't have made me happy anyway.
Right.
Unless you're in total illusion and you think, if I only had it, that would be my big chance. I could have been it. It could have been me.
Yeah, you know, that principle is laid out in the Bhagavatam, especially in the story of Dhruva, the great yogi. incredibly accomplished yogi, but he did it for a materialistic purpose. And then when Lord Vishnu appears to him, he regrets that. What was I thinking? Right? Where was my head at? So much to learn about yoga in these pages.
Yeah. Also the story of Vishwamitra, Vishwamitrasana, did that pose the other day in class, also worked very, very difficult to try to attain Vashista's magical cow.
Oh, yeah.
And he did so much tapas and penance. And then he finally became this great sage and this rishi from all of his yogic meditation. He realized, well, what do I want with a magical cow anyway? You become purified by your yogic tapas. So all the yoga systems is meant to bring us to this highest stage of what do I need anyway, except Lord Vishnu.
In one sense, one way to see yoga, the entire system is as a way of purifying one's intention, right? So that
I like that. I'm gonna Lindsay, write that one down. Say that again, please. That was very. It's almost like sometimes when Kaustubha speaks, it's like Lord Vishnu is like got his body and won't let him go, and just like speaking out of his mouth. That's what I'm feeling like sometimes, Kaustubha.
Oh, come on. That the entire yoga system can be seen as a process of purifying our intention. Did I get it?
Did you say that?
Did I totally miss it again?
I think Lord Vishnu left.
He left the room. Lord Vishnu left the room. That the entire yoga system can be seen as a way of purifying our intention.
Yes.
And so the Bhagavatam, again, is illustrating that commonly people approach God for material things. We're meant to go beyond that. Sometimes people approach to God, and people think this is really elevated. I'm approaching God to merge into God or to become completely free from all suffering. No, there's still more to it than that. Ultimately, one approaches with pure love. And that's the goal, and that's when one's achieved the goal of yoga, and that's called bhakti, entirely pure, no motive except for love. And it's funny because I see like Western people that are into yoga, they'll apply a certain vision, like say on something like Christianity, the tradition that they come from. Well, they'll see like Christians who are just praying to God for material things. They'll say, "Oh, come on now, that's not spiritual." But then when they see someone worshiping Ganesh with the same kind of motive, they think, "Oh, it's so spiritual." No, it's the same thing in either tradition. All these spiritual traditions have people that are approaching for material things, people that are approaching for relief from suffering or peace. But there's ultimately in all these traditions, people that are approaching and connecting with the divine source, with God, only for love. And that's what we're meant to be.
That's the highest.
All right.
Get ready for this verse. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers. So that's a whole other big thing in India, which we don't really have in America, where you actually, on your altar, you put a picture of your like great-grandfather, your father, right? A DTG, right?
DT?
Aditi, unmute, please.
Yes, Prabhu. We put picture of great grandfather as well, or people who have passed away.
Yeah, and in the worship of the forefathers, it assists them on their spiritual path. Like we have some duty, but in the same way, like we're so Americans, we're so like, yeah, later, mom, but we have a duty to our parents at a certain stage. The parent should be taken care of. In America, we just keep on, "Hey, mom, can I borrow I'm buying a new car. Can you co-sign on my loan? Hey, mom, why don't you even give me your car, mom? You don't drive it anymore." It's like we expect to be parented forever. At a certain stage, you start taking care of your parents. That hasn't sunk in our heads. In India, they don't not only get that, they feel like, I have a debt to my great-grandfather. When's the last time any American has said, "You know what? I don't think I should be taking drugs because, my great-grandfather wouldn't approve of this." It's like, we don't think of ourselves in a very big picture. We do what we want to do when we want to do it, and that's what we do. So we are appreciating the culture.
Okay.
Thank you, Aditi. Aditi's sort of like our foreign correspondent. Those who are the most of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers. Oh, sorry about that, Aditi. I'm saying this. You're allowed to worship all the demigods and the forefathers as long as you have this ultimate system of also worshiping Lord Vishnu. Other living beings and demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities. I'm sorry. Let me read that again because
We're going to get one verse out today.
All right, I'm trying to get this one verse out. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers and other living beings, and the demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities. For they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with women or men, depends if you're a woman, wealth, or depends if you're straight or gay. Okay. To be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny. These are the things that are drive us in the material world. Sex, right? Power and wealth, money. We work hard. We wake up for money, right? Power, some type of like influence we have other people. And of course, children, we're our progeny. We're very attached to our children. These are the material drivers in this world. Anyway, let's go on. Oh, this is our favorite verse. Kaustubha.
Oh, no, this is a big verse.
Okay, you're going to get a little Sanskrit lesson here, everybody. If you're looking at this, you can look at the Sanskrit. It's a verse. It's two verses actually. It's 28 and 29. I'm going to read it first.
All right.
Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makaha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriyaha, Vasudeva para Jnanam, Vasudeva param tapaha, Vasudeva paro dharma, Vasudeva paragati. I got a little nasally there on purpose to make it sound more authentic.
Well done. Well done.
So we don't even have to read the translation. Just let's. I'm going to let Kaustubha, because he is very, very wise, just translate it by looking.
I hope I get it all right. Well, Vasudeva is referring to Krishna.
It means, yeah, God, Krishna, Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva is Krishna.
Yeah. Vasudeva para Veda. Right. So it's saying the Veda, the highest Veda is Vasudeva, or we translate as Vasudeva.
The ultimate object of knowledge.
The ultimate of Veda. He's the ultimate. What knowledge is meant for is ultimately for understanding Vasudeva, for understanding Krishna.
The word Vedas means knowledge anyway. It means the essence of all knowledge. So it's saying he's the
ultimate goal of the revealed scriptures of the Vedas.
Yes. Vasudeva paramakaha.
All sacrifices are meant for understanding him, or meant for his pleasure.
Vasudeva para yoga.
Okay, big one here.
Here's a big one, people. Ready, yogis? Buckle your yoga straps.
Yoga is meant for realizing him.
There it is. That's it. Freaking drop the mic. Yoga is meant for realizing Vasudeva.
Okay.
Vasudeva para kriya.
All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only.
Kriya means some work.
Mm-hmm.
Some work in the world.
Yeah. So all the work is ultimately rewarded by him.
Yes. Vasudeva param jnanam.
He is the highest knowledge, the supreme knowledge.
Vasudeva, this word param means above. Like param tapaha.
Is all severe austerities are performed to know him.
All austerities. Okay. Vasudeva paro dharma.
Dharma is meant for rendering loving service unto him.
Anyway, was that it? Vasudeva paragati. That's the last one.
He is the supreme goal of life.
Supreme goal of life. We could really just end the Bhagavatam right here. That's it, you guys. There's a bunch of fantastic stories. Krishna kills a bunch of demons. Draupadi throws her hands up in the sky and says, Sri Krishna Govinda. And that is the end. Good night. Let's eat pakoras.
Yeah.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier how the sages came forward with some questions. But these questions were to frame certain topics that help us understand why this book was re-edited by Vyasadeva and is seen as the conclusion of all these teachings. Right here in this verse, he's trying to help. If you didn't understand this before, I'm going to make it very clear. Repetition, from what I've understood, I know very little about Vedic arts and so on, but from what I've heard and understood from others, that when something is repeated, it's considered a flaw, like in poetry. And therefore, if something is repeated again and again, it means it's very significant. Right? And so here you have the same message being repeated. Hey, Vasudeva is the goal of all knowledge. Vasudeva is the reason you do yoga. Vasudeva is all austerities are meant to please him. Vasudeva is the supreme goal of life. Dharma is meant to please Vasudeva. It's just like I'm repeating, get it through your head,
How much more we have to tell you guys?
Yeah, do I have to, how clear of a picture can I paint? So it's saying that, hey, we respect all the devas, but those that are in the mode of goodness, they connect with Vasudeva. They approach Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna because he can give the highest benefit, because he's the source of everything. And therefore, ultimately, if you follow yoga to its end, you ultimately connect with Vasudeva, with Sri Krishna.
Obviously, Madhu is not at watching the show because he keeps on sending me text messages, and it keeps going beep on my on my computer. So I texted him. I was like, "Stop writing me while I'm live."
Don't you know I'm on the show right now?
He should be on the show here. Okay. All right. So now I've lost my spot. Okay. In the beginning of the material creation, that absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, in this transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. By the way, I just want to share that if you're sort of like just joining the show and you just yoga searched podcasts and put in, yoga podcast, and this thing came up and you just started listening to it, you might be pretty offended. Why are these guys talking about Godhead, God, sweet baby Krishna? I thought this was yoga and not religion. And my answer is that, what am I supposed to kick Krishna out of the Bhagavad Gita? It's like he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. You getting on my back because Krishna's in the Bhagavad Gita?
That's where your yoga comes from.
That's where your yoga comes from. He's Yogeshwar. Want me to tell him to go home? It's like I'm not making this up. This is where it's from. You got to know who Lord Shiva is. You got to know Lord Krishna is. You got to read the Bhagavatam. I'm not just making this stuff up. That's like the whole material world. The whole material world wants to enjoy the resources of the material world. Yet we don't want to give any credit to the source of the material world. That's the equivalent of everybody on Zoom going to Kaustubha's house, and I'm just saying, yeah, help yourself to whatever you want. Anything? Yeah. Go in the refrigerator, take stuff, go through the drawers, whatever you want. You can just take home with you. Well, where do you get the stuff from? It just came. Where's it from? It's just here. And I can just take it? Yeah. It's ignoring the owner possessions and exploiting the resources of the earth, of nature, of every gift we ever have. That's what materialism is. And people say, just be mindful. Well, okay, then you're a mindful thief. Big deal. Let's have a mindful party where we steal everything. It's not about being mindful. It's understanding that we've created nothing. If we've created anything, it's only because we're secondhand gods. We've taken stuff that was already here. We placed it together and made something. It's not ours. Give some appreciation back to the owner, to the source. That's how you become a sorcerer. You start to acknowledge source.
Whoa, I never heard that.
What do you think about that?
What do you mean by sorcerer? What does that mean?
Bhakti-yogi, a sorcerer. If you want to call me Raghunath Sorcerer, you can.
Okay. I'll think about it.
People have PhD at the end of their name. Some people say EMT.
My name is Raghunath Sorcerer.
Well, some people say I'm a Reiki master. They put that at the end of their name, whatever it is. I'm a sorcerer.
Okay. Do you have a wand?
Working on it. Working on my. I have a sorcerer chest that I keep things in.
Okay. All right. We got a few minutes left, but I could mention you back in the first chapter. There are different sages. They're asking questions, and one of the questions they're asking is, "Tell us about the adventures that the Lord performs in His different incarnations." Those questions are being answered here. How He enters into the universe as Karna Dakshai Vishnu.
You are so good at looping it back around to. Thank you.
Just trying to keep us on the same page.
You are the GPS, man. Thank you. Next verse, we're going to call this verse 31. How about that? Let's just call it 31.
Okay.
After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he's always fully enlightened in his transcendental position.
I believe this is about how when it says he enters into the universe, this is Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Karnadakshay Vishnu.
Or, I mean, he could also be his Leela on planet Earth.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like in the world, but he's not subject to the gunas as we are.
Mm-hmm.
After creating the material substance, he expands himself and enters into it. And although he's within the material modes, in the gunas, and he appears to be one of the created beings, he's always fully enlightened and transcendental in that position. We shouldn't think like, oh, Krishna is, Krishna's just got to breathe. He's just got to, he's angry. He's about to kill some demon. He should just back off and breathe a little bit. We shouldn't think like he's controlled. Krishna, take a deep breath. Look at Kaustubha laughing. Okay. All right. Next verse.
We're almost done. We're gonna we could wrap up this chapter right now.
Okay. The Lord as the super soul pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second.
Of course, we could just talk about this verse for the rest of the time too.
You could.
You could too.
That one, I think that one just went right over my head.
As a super soul, I mean, this is what we talk about, the consciousness of a yogi. We talk about yoga and what the yogi is supposed to be seeing and what he's supposed to be realizing. This is key. This is mentioned throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that we should see the presence of the Lord everywhere. We should see the Paramatma within our own heart and then be able to see that presence everywhere. So he says permeating this creation just like fire permeates wood. Any part of the wood, there's a fire in it, right? You could pull fire out of any part of that wood. He's permeating it all. Even though you may see different forms, he's in them all. Same divine presence within the sun, within the moon, within the water, everywhere. Spread everywhere. One's meant to cultivate that vision.
Okay. The super soul, let's see if we can, how many verses before this ends?
We don't have to finish it. We got 1 minute left, and we got about 3 verses.
The super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the gunas, and causes them to enjoy the effects of the gunas by their mind. Ooh.
He's like an internal regulator. He's within. He's regulating what we enjoy, how we suffer.
So God, who is without, enters within the bodies of all living beings.
Yes.
It's not just all humans, right? It's every species has a super soul within it.
That's right.
So when we say super soul, it's separate than your own soul. You have a soul, but then you have this paramatma. You have an atma and a paramatma, which is God in full in everybody. Makes no sense. How could be God in full in everybody, but God can be? Because that's the unique position of God. Aww.
All right. We're not going to finish it today, but that's okay, Raghu.
There's 8,400,000 species of living beings. Anyway.
It's your birthday.
It's my birthday. Anyway, you know what's really good? My 2 kids were watching. Rocco was watching. Sachi was watching today on my birthday. Meant a lot to me. Thank you, guys. Everyone, hey, Rocco. Everyone listening today, thanks for joining me for the birthday celebration. I appreciate it. I'm glad I'm reading the Bhagavatam on my birthday today. And thanks for everybody listening on the podcast. We'll talk to you later. We'll sign out. We'll check in tomorrow. I'm going to make it back to the Eco Village for tomorrow's class.
Awesome.
And